What would you believe? If you had no science, no books, and no answers, only the cold wind, the crackle of fire, and the endless night sky staring back at you. The wind howls through a narrow valley somewhere in what is now southern France 40,000 years ago. The air's heavy with the scent of smoke and pine resin. A small group of Homo sapiens huddles close to a flickering fire, the only barrier between them and the cold, black wilderness beyond. Shadows dance across the walls of a limestone cave, their twisting forms merging with the crude paintings of bison, deer, and shapes that might not be animals at all. Outside, the night sky is overwhelming, a blanket of stars unpolluted by city lights. To the modern mind, these stars are distant suns, spheres of plasma burning in a vacuum billions of kilometers away. But to these early humans, they are something else entirely. They are eyes watchers, signs, and maybe gods. No one in that moment can explain the lightning that had split the sky earlier in the day, the strange orange glow on the horizon, or the low rumble that seemed to come from the earth itself. But what they can do is give it meaning. If the world is terrifying and unpredictable, then meaning is power. This, historians and anthropologists believe, is the birthplace of religion. Not in temples or scriptures, but in the raw instinct to connect cause and effect, to find patterns in chaos, to explain what science would only describe millennia later. For a caveman, life is short, dangerous, and fragile. A cut from a jagged rock could mean death. A sudden change in weather could destroy the day's hunt. The world feels alive, but not always friendly. When a child falls sick, when prey vanishes for weeks, when the rivers rise and wash away shelters, these events demand an explanation. Modern science tells us about germs, migration patterns, and seasonal floods. But for early humans, the explanations are rooted in agency. Someone caused this. Perhaps a spirit in the water, a sky being who demands respect, or an ancestor whose bones lie buried in the hills. Anthropologists studying the San people of southern Africa, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, have documented similar belief systems that may mirror ancient thought. In these systems, illness, weather, and luck are all tied to relationships with unseen forces. Disrespect the river, and it withholds its fish. Anger the sky, and it punishes with storms. This isn't ignorance, it's survival. Logic, belief becomes a tool just like a sharpened stone. Fast forward tens of thousands of years and science would eventually call this instinct pattern recognition. Psychologists describe it as agency detection. The brain's tendency to assume an intelligent cause behind every event. A rustle in the grass? Better assume it's a predator than the wind. Your survival might depend on it. This same mental mechanism could lead early humans to imagine that lightning had a mind, that rivers had moods, that the sun itself was a thinking being. Traveling across the sky over time, stories formed. The sun might be a great hunter chasing the moon. The storms might be the anger of a sky god. Fire might be a gift or a theft from a supernatural being. And yet, this is where science and religion are born from the same spark. Both start with observation, both try to answer why. The difference lies in the method science experiments. Religion narrates. It's tempting to think religion and science were always enemies, but in early humanity they often worked together. The priest and the inventor may have been the same person. The one who noticed the stars moved in a predictable path. The one who knew when the rains came. The one who could read animal tracks, like a language. Imagine a shaman in 35,000 BCE. He learns that certain plants can dull pain or stop bleeding. He also claims that the plant's power comes from a forest spirit, and that before using it, you must whisper a prayer. From a modern perspective, half of this is botany, half is religion, but for the people of his tribe, it's one unified truth. Early astronomers, too, often worked within religious systems. Alignments of stones, like those found in Nabta Playa in Egypt or Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, may have served both spiritual and practical purposes. They marked solstices for ritual and planting seasons for survival. Religion also gave cavemen a way to imagine themselves in the universe. Gods were not abstract forces, they had human traits: anger, joy, jealousy, generosity. This made them relatable and, in a strange way, negotiable. You could bargain with a god, you could offer a sacrifice in exchange for safety. This is not so different from the way modern humans sometimes negotiate with science. We take medicine to bargain with disease, build levees to bargain with floods, launch satellites to bargain with the unpredictability of weather. The language changes, but the underlying impulse to influence forces greater than ourselves remains the same. Across cultures, religious traditions have their own creation stories that intersect and conflict with scientific narratives. According to the Abrahamic faiths, God created the heavens and the earth, bringing order from chaos. In Hindu cosmology, the universe is born from the sound Om and cycles through creation and destruction. In many indigenous traditions, the world emerges from the actions of spirit beings or animals. Science offers the Big Bang a singularity 138 billion years ago, expanding into everything we know: matter, energy, space, and time itself. Born in a fraction of a second, it offers evolution, the gradual change of life through natural selection, from single-celled organisms to Homo sapiens. To the caveman mind, both views might feel like different languages describing the same mystery. Religion answers why with purpose. Science answers how with process. And for much of human history, they weren't in competition, they were complementary. So when did the split happen? Most likely when explanations started to contradict. If the shaman says the moon disappears because a god swallows it, but the proto-scientist says it's an eclipse caused by the Earth's shadow. Now you have two competing truths. And if one of those truths undermines the authority of the other, conflict is inevitable. In early human society, authority was survival. Discredit the shaman, and you risk destabilizing the group's trust. Discredit the observer, and you risk losing valuable knowledge. This tension would echo for thousands of years, from Galileo's trial to the Scopes monkey trial, and even into debates today over climate change, medicine, and the origins of life. But here's the question: was the caveman who prayed to the river god really so different from the scientist who studies its currents? Both seek control, both seek safety, both seek understanding. In the next part, we'll step out of the flickering cave light and into the first great human experiments, when early humans built the tools, monuments, and myths that still shape our beliefs about the world today. Before we go further, if you want to uncover the untold connections between the faith of our ancestors and the science that defines our future, subscribe now. The deeper we dig, the stranger the truth becomes. The cave paintings have faded. The fires have moved from the mouths of caves to the open courtyards of early villages. It's now 10,000 BCE, and the world is on the edge of a transformation. The ice is retreating. Forests are spreading. Humans are settling, planting, and staying. With stability comes something new: memory. No longer just stories whispered at night, myths can be preserved in carvings, passed down in rituals, etched into stone, and with permanence comes complexity. The gods, once just river spirits or sky watchers, now have names, families, rivalries, and laws. But alongside this, something else grows: a systematic way of watching the world. The same people who carve idols also carve calendars. The same hands that grind pigments for sacred art trace the movement of stars across clay tablets. In what is now southeastern Turkey, around 9,600 BCE, a site emerges that baffles archaeologists to this day: Göbekli Tepe. Its massive stone pillars, arranged in circles, are adorned with animals, symbols, and human figures. No one lived here permanently. This wasn't a village, this was something else, a place of gathering, worship, perhaps even astronomy. The alignments of its stones suggest the builders tracked celestial events. Some researchers believe the carvings mark constellations, possibly even recording the impact of a comet around 10,900 BCE, a cosmic event that may have influenced myths of a great flood across multiple cultures. Here, science and religion aren't rivals, they're fused. Watching the stars isn't just curiosity, it's devotion. The heavens are both clock and scripture. Fast forward to 3000 BCE. The Nile floods each year, bringing rich soil but also unpredictability. Egypt's survival depends on knowing when the waters will rise. Enter the priest astronomers. Their religious role is to maintain harmony between the gods and the people. Their scientific role is to chart the stars and the sun's path, predicting the flood. Temples double as observatories. At the Temple of Amun-Re at Karnak is built so that the winter solstice sun illuminates its inner sanctum, a fusion of cosmic precision and spiritual symbolism. In Egyptian thought, there's no division between religion and science. The universe works because the gods say so, and the gods can be understood by observing nature's patterns. In Sumer and Babylon, around 2000 BCE, the first written records of scientific observation appear alongside hymns to the gods. Clay tablets record lunar eclipses, planetary motions, and complex mathematics. Why? Because in their worldview, the gods communicate through the sky. If Mars moves in a strange way, it's not just an astronomical event, it's a divine message, perhaps a warning of war. This is the birthplace of astrology. To modern science, astrology is superstition, but to the ancient Mesopotamians, it's cutting-edge research. Mapping the heavens is a way to decode divine will. In ancient India, the Vedic texts blend hymns, philosophical speculation, and detailed astronomical observations. The Vedas describe cosmic cycles, stretching billions of years eerily close to modern estimates of the universe's age. Time is seen as an endless loop, with creation and destruction repeating. In China, around the same period, the I Ching and early astronomy work in Harmony Court, astronomers track eclipses and comets, not just for scientific records, but to interpret the mandate of heaven, the belief that rulers must govern in harmony with cosmic order or face disaster. Here, science serves religion, and religion frames science. Neither exists in isolation. But as civilizations grow, the unity between religion and science begins to crack. By 600 BCE in ancient Greece, thinkers like Thales and Anaximander start proposing natural explanations for the world's phenomena. The sun isn't a god. Thales says it's a ball of fire. Earthquakes aren't punishments from the gods, Anaximander argues. They happen because the earth floats on water and shifts. For the first time, the why of religion and the how of science start pulling in different directions. The divide widens in Athens, where philosophers like Democritus propose atoms, invisible particles making up everything, while temples still teach of gods shaping the cosmos by will. Even as the schism grows, both sides still influence each other. According to the Hebrew Bible, the heavens declare the glory of God, encouraging observation as a form of worship. According to early science, the heavens operate by fixed laws, but those laws could be seen as the handiwork of a creator. By the time of Aristotle in the 4th century BCE, scientific thought begins codifying methods, observation, logic, classification. Yet even Aristotle still speaks of a prime mover, an eternal being responsible for motion in the universe. Religion and science still share space, even as they debate. Across the ancient world, science often advances because religion demands it. Temples need precise calendars for festivals, leading to advances in astronomy. Ritual. Sacrifices require accurate counting of livestock, leading to better mathematics. Sacred architecture demands engineering breakthroughs. In this era, the priest, the mathematician, and the astronomer are often the same person. Knowledge is power, but power is justified by divine mandate. The lesson from this period is clear: science and religion, in their earliest large-scale forms, were less like rivals and more like partners in a fragile marriage. They shared the same goals: survival, order, meaning, but spoke in different dialects. When the dialects aligned, civilizations thrived. When they clashed, they often tore themselves apart. And here's the question we'll tackle in the next part: when religion and science finally do go to war, what happens? Which side really changes the world, and which side changes us? If you want to follow this story from ancient temples to modern laboratories, subscribe now, because the next part will reveal how this ancient partnership unraveled and what that means for us in 2025. By the dawn of the Common Era, the delicate balance between religion and science is already strained. Civilizations have grown vast, faith systems have hardened into institutions, and rulers have learned that controlling knowledge is just as important as controlling armies. Where once the same person could be both priest and scientist, now the roles are splitting apart and sometimes violently colliding. In 3rd century BCE Egypt, the Library of Alexandria was humanity's greatest collection of knowledge scrolls on medicine, astronomy, mathematics, and engineering from Greece, Egypt, India, and beyond. But knowledge isn't neutral. Much of what was stored there contradicted the religious narratives of the time. Over centuries, political and religious tensions led to its destruction. Some blame Julius Caesar's siege of the city in 48 BCE. others later Christian or Muslim leaders. The truth is, it probably burned more than once. Whatever the cause, the result was catastrophic. Countless scientific works were lost forever. The burning of the library became a symbol when religion and politics feel threatened. Science can be silenced. By the early Middle Ages, 5th to 10th centuries CE, much of Europe's scientific curiosity had shifted into the hands of the Church. Monasteries copied and preserved ancient texts, but always filtered through theological approval. The geocentric model Earth at the center of the universe became dogma, partly from Aristotle and Ptolemy's influence, but also because it fit the biblical narrative of a God-focused cosmos. According to this worldview, questioning the structure of the universe wasn't just bad science, it was heresy. The Church saw itself as the guardian of truth, and truth was defined by Scripture, not observation. Yet, in the same era, the Islamic world was experiencing something entirely different. From the 8th to the 14th century, cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cordoba became centers of both faith and reason. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad translated Greek, Persian, and Indian works into Arabic, preserving them for centuries. Scientists like Al-Hazan ibn al-Haytham revolutionized optics, while al-Khwarizmi gave the world algebra. Islamic scholars saw no contradiction in studying the natural world. In fact, the Quran encouraged reflection on creation as a way to understand God. But even here, tensions grew. By the late Middle Ages, more conservative forces began restricting certain inquiries, fearing they might undermine religious authority. By the 15th century, Europe was waking from its intellectual slumber. Ancient Greek and Roman texts, many preserved by Islamic scholars, returned to Europe. Art, architecture, and science flourished. Thinkers like Copernicus began to question the Church's cosmology. His 1543 work, De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, proposed a heliocentric model of the Sun, not Earth, at the center. To the Church, this wasn't just a scientific dispute, it was a challenge to Scripture, and therefore to divine authority. Galilei took the challenge further. Using his telescope, he observed moons orbiting Jupiter, proof that not everything revolved around Earth. For this, he was tried by the Inquisition in 1633, forced to recant, and placed under house arrest. His discoveries stood, but his freedom did not. According to the Catholic Church of the 17th century, the heavens were immutable, perfect spheres moved by divine will. According to science, the heavens were dynamic planets orbited, comets blazed, and the Earth itself moved through space. The difference wasn't just about facts, it was about authority. Religion asked for faith in divine revelation. Science asked for trust in observation and reason. Each saw the other as undermining its foundation. By the 18th century, the Enlightenment was in full swing. Philosophers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Kant championed reason, skepticism, and empirical evidence. Religion wasn't abandoned, but it was increasingly placed under scrutiny. This was the era when the idea of natural law, that the universe operates according to discoverable, consistent principles, began to overshadow the idea of divine intervention in every event. But the divorce was messy. While Enlightenment thinkers dismantled superstition and championed human rights, they also often dismissed centuries of spiritual tradition as irrelevant. The unity of human understanding, where faith and science spoke to each other, was fracturing into two camps. In the centuries that followed, the relationship was defined more by confrontation than collaboration. Darwin's On the Origin of Species in 1859 sparked one of the most heated debates in history. To many religious leaders, the idea that humans evolved from common ancestors rather than being specially created was an existential threat to their doctrine. According to Darwin's supporters, evolution was simply following the evidence. According to his opponents, it undermined the moral and spiritual uniqueness of humanity. The echoes of that conflict still resonate today. And this brings us to the modern moment, a world where both religion and science wield enormous influence, but often in parallel lanes. Climate change, artificial intelligence, genetic engineering all raise profound questions that are both scientific and moral. Some religious voices call for restraint, warning of playing God. Some scientific voices push forward regardless, insisting that human survival depends on innovation. The tension remains, but so does the possibility of partnership. In the final part of this series, we'll ask the ultimate question: if both religion and science claim to seek truth, Is there a future where they work together again, not as enemies, but as allies? If you want to hear that answer, subscribe now, because the ending might surprise you. If there's one thing history teaches us, it's that religion and science are like two siblings who can't decide whether to embrace or compete. They've shared the same house of human curiosity for tens of thousands of years. But while religion often looks upward for meaning, science looks outward for evidence. The question in 2025 is not whether one will destroy the other, but whether they must, or whether there's a path where both can thrive. In our caveman beginnings, belief and observation were inseparable. If you saw lightning, you imagined the gods were angry, and that story was your science. But today, data travels faster than faith. A new discovery can be in headlines before the Vatican, the Dalai Lama, or any imam even hears about it. And the stakes are higher. Artificial intelligence can now write sermons or solve physics equations. CRISPR can rewrite human DNA. Quantum computing might one day simulate universes. These aren't just scientific milestones, they are moral crossroads. According to religious perspectives, some of these powers look like hubris, humanity reaching for roles meant only for God. According to science, they are simply tools, and how we use them determines whether they're salvation or disaster. Surprisingly, there's a quiet movement in both worlds toward cooperation. In astrophysics, some scientists openly discuss the fine-tuning of the universe, the improbable precision of constants like gravity, and the speed of light in ways that echo religious awe. In theology, more leaders acknowledge that evolution and the Big Bang don't necessarily deny God. They may be the methods by which creation unfolded. Pope Francis himself said in 2014 that the Big Bang does not contradict the divine act of creation, but rather requires it. Even in medicine, ethics boards that approve cutting-edge treatments often include both scientists and religious thinkers. The goal? To ensure that progress serves humanity, not just curiosity or profit. Here's where it comes full circle. Imagine a caveman staring at the night sky with no language for atoms, no equations for gravity, no telescope to pierce the stars. He doesn't know what a photon is, but he feels something, a presence, a question, a pull. That impulse is the root of both religion and science. Religion calls it faith. Science calls it curiosity. But in the end, they are both ways of saying, we want to understand. When humanity leans too far into religion without science, we risk superstition, stagnation, and fear of change. When we lean too far into science without religion, or at least without a moral compass, we risk arrogance, ethical blindness, and treating humans as just data points. Both extremes have led to tragedy. The Crusades, the Inquisition, witch trials fueled by religious absolutism. Nuclear weapons, eugenics, unethical experiments born from scientific advancement without moral restraint. The solution may not be blending them into one, but letting them run alongside each other, science explaining the how, religion exploring the why. Imagine a world where climate scientists work with theologians to frame environmentalism as both an ecological and a sacred duty. Where space exploration is seen not as conquering the cosmos, but as fulfilling the ancient call to look to the heavens. The cavemen didn't know they were setting us on this path, but from the first myth to the first microscope, the journey has always been about expanding the horizon. The tools change, the language changes, but the hunger stays the same. If both religion and science are, at their core, humanity's attempts to find truth, then maybe the real enemy isn't one another. Maybe it's the human tendency to believe we've already arrived. The moment we think we've found all the answers, whether through faith or data, is the moment we stop looking and the moment we stop being human. The caveman never stopped looking at the sky. Neither should we. If you believe that the story of humanity is still being written and you want to see the next chapters unfold, subscribe now, because the journey from faith to fact isn't over, and the ending might just bring them back together.